Zhou Tong was the archery teacher and second military arts tutor of famous Song Dynasty General Yue Fei.Originally a local hero from Henan. He was hired to continue Yue Fei's military training in archery after the boy had rapidly mastered spearplay under his first teacher. In addition to the future general, Zhou accepted other children as archery pupils. During his tutelage, Zhou taught the children all of his skills and even rewarded Yue with his 2 favorite bows because he was his best pupil. After Zhou's death, Yue would regularly visit his tomb twice a month and perform unorthodox sacrifices that far surpassed that done for even beloved tutors. Yue later taught what he had learned from Zhou to his soldiers and they were successful in battle. With the publishing of Yue Fei's 17th folklore biography, The Story of Yue Fei, a new distinct fictional Zhou Tong emerged, which differed greatly from his historical persona. Not only was he now from Shaanxi, but he was Yue's adopted father, a learned scholar with knowledge of the 18 weapons of war, and his personal name was spelled with a different, yet related, Chinese character. The novel's author portrayed him as an elderly widower and military arts tutor who counted Lin Chong and Lu Junyi, 2 of the fictional 108 outlaws on which the water margin is based, among his former pupils. A later Republican-era folktale by noted Yangzhou storyteller Wang Xiaotang not only adds Wu Song to this list, but represents Zhou as a knight-errant with supreme swordsmanship. The tale also gives him the nickname Iron Arm, which he shares with the executioner-turned-outlaw Ai Fu, and makes the outlaw Lu Zhishan his sworn brother. Because of his association with the outlaws, he is often confused with the similarly named outlaw Zhou Tong. Various wuxia novels and folk legends have endowed Zhou with different kinds of martial and supernatural skills. These range from mastery of the bow, double broadswords, and Chinese spear to that of wudang, hard qigong and even X-ray vision. Practitioners of Eagle Claw, Chuo Zhao and Xingyi commonly include him within the lineage history because of his association with Yue Fei, the supposed progenitor of these styles. He is also linked to northern praying mantis boxing via Lin Chong and Yan King. Wang Xiaotang's folktale even represents him as a master of drunken 8 immortals boxing. However, the oldest historical record that mentions his name only says he taught archery to Yue Fei. Nothing is ever said about him knowing or teaching a specific style of Chinese martial arts. Zhou has appeared in various forms of media such as novels, comic books, and movies. His rare 20th century biography, Iron Arm, Golden Saber, serves as a sequel to the story of Yue Fei because it details his adventures decades prior to taking Yue as his pupil. This was later adapted into a 10-volume Lianhua comic book. He also appears in a novel concerning one of his fictional martial arts brothers. He was portrayed by 3 different actors in a string of black and white Yue Fei films produced in the 1940s and 1960s, one of which featured a 10-year-old Sammo Hung as the lead. Veteran martial arts actor Yu Chenggui, who played the sword-wielding antagonist in Jet Li's Shaolin Temple, stated in a 2005 interview that he has always wanted to portray Zhou in a film. History mentioned in Yue family memoirs. On his deathbed, Yue Fei's third son Yue Lin asked his own son, the poet and historian Yue Kei, to complete Yue Fei's memoirs. This 2-part memoir was completed in 1203, some 60 years after the general's political execution, but was not published until 1234. It was later abridged in 1345 and published in the Yuan dynasty's dynastic chronology History of the Song Dynasty, under the title Yue Fei Biography. Zhou's mention in Yue Kei's memoir was only briefly summarized in the Yuan rewrite. It reads, he learned archery from Zhou Tong. He learned everything and could fire with his left and right hands. After Tong's death, he would offer sacrifices at his tomb. Western Washington University history professor Edward Kaplan explains Zhou as a local Hao. He comments Hao can also mean a knight-errant in poetic translation, or in prosaic terms a professional strongman and bodyguard. Single quote. This means Zhou was a local hero from Tangyin County, Anyang Prefecture, Henan Province. Historical and scholarly sources spell his personal name as meaning same or similar. This differs from the spelling present in fictional sources, which will be further explained below. So represents the historical archer. Tutelage. Despite being literate, giving him a chance to become a scholar, young Yue Fei chose the military path because there had never been any tradition of full-fledged Confucian civil service in his family history. He would stay up all night reading military strategy books and idolized such great historical heroes as Guan Yu. However, the Yu family was much too poor to afford military lessons for the son, so Zhou Tong, the boy's maternal grandfather, hired Chen Guang to teach the 11-year-old how to wield the Chinese spear. Zhou was very surprised when his grandson quickly mastered the spear by the age of 13. Zhou was then brought in to continue Yu's military training and archery. Dr. Kaplan describes Zhou as the most important of the two teachers. A section of the Jintuo Zhu Pian, the second part of Yu's original published memoir, describes one of Zhou's archery lessons and reveals that he took other children as his pupils. One day, Tung gathered his pupils for an archery session and to display his ability put 3 arrows in succession into the center of the target. Pointing to the target to show grandfather, he said, "After you can perform like this, you can say you are an archer." Grandfather thanked him and asked to be allowed to try. He drew his bow, let fly his arrow and struck the end of Tung's arrow. He shot again and again hit the mark. Tung was greatly amazed and subsequently presented to grandfather his 2 favorite bows. Thereafter grandfather practiced still more. He was able to shoot to the left and right, accurately letting fly the arrow as he moved. When he became a general, he taught this to his officers and men so that his whole army became skilled at shooting to the left and right hand. Frequently used this technique to crush the enemy's spirit. The last sentence of the passage is similar to one from the Republican-era biography of Song Yu, Prince of Yi. But instead of teaching them his own technique, it states Yu taught what he had learned from Zhou to his soldiers who were victorious in battle. Zhou continued to teach the children until his death, prior to Yu's legal adulthood. Following his passing, Yu became extremely depressed since Zhou had been the greatest influence on his early life. Zhou's student would regularly visit his tomb on the 1st and 15th of every month with sacrifices of meat and wine and would shoot 3 arrows in succession with one of the 2 bows his tutor had presented him with. Dr. Kaplan comments this continuous unusual display of mourning went far beyond the ceremonial appropriate for even a highly respected teacher. Noted sinologist Helmuth Wilhelm claims even though the display of grief was genuine, it was also a way of emulating the stories of his heroic idols and, in the public eye. Yu's father later followed him secretly to Zhou's tomb after striking him during an argument over his melancholic behavior. There, he saw him perform the unorthodox obediences involving the meat, wine, and 3 arrows. When he finally confronted him, the son confessed that his gratitude for Chu's instruction could not be requited simply by the usual first and middle of the month ceremonies, and so he shot off the 3 arrows to symbolize that Chu had been the source of his inspiration as an archer. Dr. Kaplan states this happened just prior to Yu's entrance into the army and that the entire event served as a symbol for Yu's entrance into Responsible manhood. The chronology of Yu Mu lists the events at Zhou's tomb happening in 1121 when Yu was 19, but Yu would have been 18 in that year since he was born on the 15th day of the second month of 1103. The author of the original source material was using Zhou age calculation, in which a child is already considered 1 year old at birth. Since Yu joined the military shortly after Zhou's death, a relative time frame can be given for when he died. During the early months of 1122, the Song Empire mobilized its armed forces to assist the Jurchen in confronting the common enemy, the Liao dynasty. Therefore, it appears that Zhou died in late 1121, before the call to arms was issued.